This is my friend and colleague, Rhonda Garber. Hi, Rhonda.
Hi, Deb.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate this so much.
It's my pleasure.
I want to dive right in today and have you share with our guests a little bit about where you started your journey, when you learned about your diagnosis, and what treatment you've gone through so far.
Okay. It really started back in 2014 when I was diagnosed with breast cancer. At that time, I had radiation therapy and surgery, and I did great. I did really well, and I did not have a difficult time with the treatment. Everything went really smoothly, and then 5 years goes by. Uneventful 5 years. I felt like I was in good health and doing okay. And then last September, I started having symptoms that I didn't recognize as anything serious or anything of concern. The symptoms were, I had some mild pelvic pain and abdominal bloating and a cough. The cough just, I couldn't finish a sentence without coughing. And I thought I had a cold, or I didn't know. The other thing was, every time I would eat, I would get full really fast. And again, I didn't know what these symptoms meant. So time went by. I thought these symptoms would go away, but they got worse. And then I really was starting to feel miserable. By mid to late October, I was feeling very unwell. Saw my primary care. I saw my PCP, Erica Hall, and she was wonderful.
She is wonderful,
she,
yes.
Very quickly determined that I needed to go to the ER that day. That was on October 28th. So I went to the ER there, and the doctor, I remember the doctor so well, Dr. Reed Roberts and the nurse, Tara Elliott Green, they were so compassionate and so kind. CT scan, blood work, we learned. My husband was with me, my husband Greg, and we learned that I had ovarian cancer. So, of course, I'm sure it was hard to deliver that news to me, but they did just provide really compassionate care, and I'm very thankful for them. So we learned that 2 days later, I was here at the Cancer Center seeing Dr. Polkinghorn, and he and my surgeon, Dr. Lori Small from Scarborough, both were encouraging, and they gave me some hope. You know, I knew I had a long road ahead, but they were making me feel like you can get through this. We can help you get through this. So my treatment started with a diagnostic laparoscopy to do biopsies and confirm my diagnosis. Then, and also the abdominal bloating. The abdominal bloating had gotten really very uncomfortable, and the cough, I learned, was caused by that abdominal fluid, and it was called ascites, and it was pressing on my diaphragm, causing that cough. So during the laparoscopy, they were able to drain it, so I felt much better after that. And I ended up needing that procedure where they drain it, paracentesis. I needed that 3 times. And one time in particular, the doctor was so kind, and he said that he told me that his wife had ovarian cancer, and that she was doing great, and she had survived, and so I had these little amazing
Hopeful
people
stories.
along the way. Yes.
Right.
So from there, we started chemo. So mid-November of last year, I started chemotherapy, and had 9 weeks. I had a weekly. Every week, I had Wednesdays. I would go in and have my chemo, and I got through the 9 weeks. And in January, I had major surgery where they did the debulking, and that was in Portland. And then 9 more weeks of chemo. So on May 6th, I had my last treatment, and I've been doing great since then.
Wonderful.
So, yes.
Wonderful. And should I assume that you rang the milestone bell?
I definitely rang the bell. Yes, I did.
Tell
As a
us
matter
about
of fact,
that.
I joke that I rang the bell off the wall, but I didn't break anything. I promise I did. I was in treatment, right? And my husband called me, and because it was during COVID, of course.
Yes.
So he had been with me for every appointment, for every treatment and everything, and he couldn't be in there for that day. Of course, it was in May of this year, and he called and said, "How much longer are you going to be?" And I knew he would be out there, and I knew I was going to ring the bell that day. And I knew my mom and my daughter, but I was blown away when I walked out of this building, and all my kids were there. My grandkids were there.
Yes, yeah,
It was really special.
yeah,
That was a big deal for me.
that's great.
Very special moment, and you know, it was in the middle of COVID. It was in the middle of the workday, but they all were there.
Yeah.
And even Chuck Hayes was there, and my boss and friend Margaret was there.
Yeah.
So that was definitely a milestone.
That's
for me.
great. And I wanted you to share that today with our guests, because even in these times of COVID, I want people to be innovative and think about ways to be able to support. And
Everybody
they
was
couldn't come
masked.
in, but
Yeah.
they could be right there.
They
when
could,
you
and
walked
we
out.
were all masked. I mean,
Yes, and
and
that's
it
so
was-
important.
yeah, but it was.
to be
I couldn't
there.
hug anybody except for my husband, but
Yeah.
I hugged him instead. So it
Yeah,
was good.
that's
Yeah.
great. Well, I wanted you to share again with our guests about how this diagnosis and this experience has impacted you and motivated you to make some changes in
Okay.
your life.
Very early on, after I learned that I had ovarian cancer, I really evaluated my health. I looked at things like, you know, how's my physical health? And obviously I had ovarian cancer. I thought I was pretty healthy. I thought I was okay. My mental health, my emotional health, my spiritual health. I looked at everything, and I started educating myself to learn what can I do to give myself every chance for healing. And I made some changes to my diet. I changed my diet to be primarily a whole food, plant-based diet. I started exercising every day, and there were some days it was literally 15 minutes is all I could do, but I did it anyway, and it was good for my head,
Yeah.
you know?
Yes.
And, you know, thinking positively and journaling my whole cancer journey, actually, and documenting the kindnesses and the blessings that I experienced along the way. That was really helpful to me. So I intend to do all of these things for the rest of my life,
Right.
because there's a risk of recurrence, and I want to do everything I can to reduce that risk. So I think that's important, and it contributed to how well I did, I believe, throughout my treatment, because, you know, that there were a lot of hard days, but you know, focusing on those positive things and choosing to see the good and recognizing the blessings, and
Right.
you know, eating the healthy food and
Right.
getting some movement
Yeah.
in, all those things made a difference.
And there's resources here at Maine General. In fact, I think I saw you walking into a cooking class here too. So you've also participated in some of the resources that we've made available
Yes,
for some of those life changes as well.
absolutely. And
Yes.
you know, there was one in particular that COVID happened, so I didn't get to go, but I want to go, and that's an anti-inflammatory cooking class.
Yes.
That would be interesting, because, you know,
Right.
I educated myself, as I said, and trying to learn as much as I can about how to take care of myself in
Right.
ways that promote healing.
Yes, good. Found the
Yeah.
positive in it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask you to also share, I called it, we often hear about stranger danger, but you have a story that impressed me about a stranger that reached out to you during this time and your experience that I just thought was pretty neat. And it's about, for me, to have you share with our guests online that are looking, how can you pay it forward? How can you help others in this time of support? Because sometimes people want to do something for others and they just simply don't know what to do. So
Right.
I ask you to share that
So
story.
I love telling this story. This is just such a cool thing that happened. One day I was here for treatment. I was in the lab waiting room, and a lady walked in, and she was wearing a pretty pink top, and I complimented her. And I said something like, "That color looks really good on you," and she was really friendly and warm, and so we chatted for literally 2 minutes, 3 minutes max. And I said, "My name is Rhonda," and her name was Becky, and off we went for our labs or whatever. A week goes by, I'm here to see the doctor, and I'm in his exam room, and somebody brought in a gift box for me. And I thought maybe it's, you know, a prayer shawl, you know, because people will make things like that for cancer patients.
Right.
I wasn't sure what it would be, and I opened it, and it was that pink top that she was wearing.
Yes.
And I was blown away, and I said, "Oh my goodness, that's the pink top that lady was wearing last week." And I opened the card, and it's Becky. It was from Becky. And I looked at her last name, and I'm like, "Oh my goodness, that's the same last name as the doctor from interventional radiology that had told me about his wife who had had ovarian cancer that was
Wow.
better.
Yeah.
So I believed that was the same person, but
Right.
I thought that was super cool.
Yes.
And it was just such a kind thing for her to do, to
Yeah.
go out of her way to go shopping and purchase that shirt for me and then find me. All she knew was my first name and that I get treatment on Wednesdays. It
Yeah.
was just really nice.
Yeah.
And I did experience lots of other little kindnesses along the way. People would send me texts and scripture verses and things like books, and I would people would come visit me before COVID, of course, and things like that. And it just everything was very meaningful to me. It was uplifting, and I felt very supported by even the smallest things. And people knew I was eating a very special diet, and they would cook for me. I had a lot of soup during those months, and they would cook for me based on what I was eating, and I thought that was really cool too.
It is great.
So,
Yeah. I know your work family.
Oh my
was
goodness,
right with
I have
us
an
for
amazing
this all.
work family. As a matter of fact,
Yes.
when I was thinking about talking to you today, I remember every week when I would come in and be in treatment, I would barely be in the treatment chair, and I would start getting their texts, and they would just be cheering me on all the time. And we did something, every time we'd do heart hands.
Yes.
I'd take a picture of my hands,
Yeah.
and they would take pictures of, sometimes pictures of the whole team doing heart hands
Yeah.
just in support of me. And so, yeah, they were amazing. They are family. They're my
Yes.
friends too.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing
Yes.
those different things. And I asked you, talk about the different symptoms and things like that, because I know that you may make a connection with someone out there that may be going through some of these things, and we want to be able to be proactive rather than being reactive for these kind of things. So thank you for that. And as we wrap up, is there anything that you wanted to just send to our listeners to close?
Yes, I would. There's a few things I'd like to say. First of all is those symptoms are, please remember to get checked out if
Right.
you experience something like unusual abdominal bloating. Not the kind you get with your monthly cycle. This was, my whole abdomen was bloating. The little bit of pelvic pain and the coughing. Who would think coughing might be a sign of ovarian cancer? I had no idea. So, and then they're getting full really quickly. So, get checked out if things like that happen, and doctors recognize that stuff right off the bat. And the other thing I wanted to share is that, there's hope beyond your cancer diagnosis. It's hope. I know hope comes from God, and I don't ever think that, there's not hope beyond my diagnosis of cancer, and nobody can take that away from you.
Yeah.
So no matter how sick I might have felt, or no matter how hard things were at times, I had that as such a reassurance to myself. It meant a lot to me. So beyond that, it's just take good care of yourself.
Yes.
Take good care of yourself. Think about what you're eating. Think about how you're exercising. If you're not exercising, take a walk. Start taking walks, and doing those small things. I think that can make a difference.
Yes, great.
So yeah.
Great. Well, thank you, Rhonda.
Thank
Great
you.
tips for our audience, and thank you for the blessings.
Thank you.